Every great conversation begins between two thoughts.
Can I ask you something kind of personal?
You always say that right before you ask something very personal.
Yeah, okay, fair. So, have you ever not done something? Not because you couldn't, but because you were scared of what would happen if you tried and it didn't work out?
That might be the most uncomfortably accurate question anyone has ever asked me.
I'll take that as a yes.
A very loud yes. There was this course, 2 years ago maybe. I had everything I needed to apply. The qualifications, the time. I wanted it genuinely, and I just didn't.
What happened?
Nothing happened. That's the thing. I just kept thinking, what if I apply and they say no? What if I get there and realize I'm not actually as capable as I thought? What if I fail and then I have to sit with that, actually know it, that I wasn't good enough?
So not knowing felt safer than finding out.
Yeah, exactly that. If you never try, you never officially fail, so technically you're still fine, still possibly capable. The door stays open even if you never walk through it.
There's actually a name for that, what you just described. Psychologists call it self-handicapping.
Self-handicapping. That sounds like something a golfer does.
The word comes from sport, yeah, but the psychology, it's everywhere. It's when we unconsciously create distance from something before we even attempt it. So if it goes wrong, we have a reason ready. A reason that isn't about our ability.
So instead of, I tried and wasn't good enough, it becomes, I didn't really try, so it doesn't count.
Right. It protects something. The ego, I suppose. The story we tell ourselves about who we are and what we're capable of. But the cost of that protection is enormous.
The cost of never actually finding out.
Never growing, never becoming, never living, and I don't mean that dramatically. Just never living the version of your life that was actually available to you.
That's a heavy thing to sit with.
It is. And what makes it heavier is that most people don't even realize they're doing it. Because the brain it's incredibly clever at making fear sound like reason.
What do you mean?
It doesn't say I'm scared, it never says that. It says, now isn't quite the right time. Or, I need to prepare a bit more first. Or, the conditions aren't quite right yet. All of which sound completely sensible.
Oh, that's uncomfortable. Because I've said every single one of those things. Genuinely believed them too.
Most people have. The voice of fear is extremely rational sounding. That's what makes it so hard to catch. You think you're being wise and measured, and sometimes you are. But sometimes, you're just scared.
How do you tell the difference?
Honestly, that's one of the harder questions. But one signal is, does the hesitation get stronger the more important something is to you? Because logical caution doesn't really scale with emotional stakes. Fear does.
So if something matters more and I pull back more, that's probably fear dressed as logic.
Usually, yeah. Okay, so where does it actually come from? Because you're right that babies aren't afraid of failing. A baby learning to walk falls constantly and just gets up and tries again. No shame, no spiral, just tries again.
So it's learned. Somewhere along the way we learn to be afraid of it.
Completely learned. Through school systems that treat wrong answers as something to be embarrassed about. Through environments where love or praise was connected to performance. Through watching how the adults around us responded to their own failures. We absorb all of it.
We learn that failure means something about us, not just about the attempt.
That's the shift that does the damage. There's a psychologist, Carol Dweck at Stanford, who spent decades studying exactly this. She identified two fundamental ways people relate to their own abilities. She called them the fixed mindset and the growth mindset.
I've heard those terms, but I'd like to actually understand them properly.
So, fixed mindset is the belief that your abilities are essentially set. You're either smart or you're not, talented or you're not. It's just what you are. And if that's what you believe, then failure becomes evidence. evidence of what you actually are underneath.
So it stops being I failed at this thing and becomes I am a failure.
That jump, from doing to being, that's where the fear actually lives. Because if failure reveals something permanent and true about you, then of course you avoid it. Of course you do.
And growth mindset?
The belief that abilities develop through effort, through learning, frankly, through failing and figuring out why. So failure isn't a verdict anymore. It's information. It's part of the process. Not a stop sign, more like a redirection.
The exact same event means something completely different depending on which of those you're carrying around.
Completely different internal experience. Same outcome, totally different meaning attached to it. And meaning, the story we tell about what happened, that's everything when it comes to how fear operates.
Okay, so knowing this is useful, but knowing about fixed versus growth mindset doesn't automatically change how it feels in the moment. When the fear is right there and the opportunity is right there, knowing the theory doesn't make the fear smaller.
No, it doesn't. Knowledge alone rarely changes behavior. The shift has to go deeper than that. And there are specific things that actually help, not just sound good.
Tell me.
The first one, failure reframing. And it starts with just one question. Instead of why did I fail, you ask, what did I learn? That's it. That's the whole thing.
Such a tiny change in wording, but it completely changes where you end up mentally.
Because the first question looks backwards and finds someone to blame, usually yourself. The second one opens something. It finds value in the experience even when the experience was painful. There's always something there if you ask the right question.
Always?
Always. Even if the lesson is just, that wasn't the right path, now I know. That's still something. That's still movement.
What else?
Fear setting. This one comes from Tim Ferriss. He based it on ancient Stoic philosophy, actually. And it's a writing exercise. You take the thing you're afraid to attempt, and you write down the absolute worst that could realistically happen if you try, and it falls apart completely. Specific, detailed, all of it.
That sounds genuinely awful.
It feels awful at first. But then, second part, you write what you would actually do if that worst case happened. How would you recover? Who could help? What would your life look like 6 months later, honestly?
And suddenly the worst case becomes survivable.
Almost always. The mind makes catastrophe feel enormous and permanent in the abstract. But when you write it out concretely, the thing shrinks. You realize, okay, I could get through that. That wouldn't end me.
Because it stops being this shapeless, terrifying thing and becomes an actual scenario with actual solutions.
Exactly. And then the third part. What does your life look like in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years if you never attempt this at all? What is the cost of staying still?
And that cost becomes visible, maybe for the first time.
And for most people, when they actually write it out, the cost of not trying is far more frightening than the failure itself ever was.
Because you're not choosing between trying and being safe anymore. You're choosing between two kinds of risk. The risk of failure and the risk of regret.
And regret, the research on this is pretty consistent. Regret is the more painful of the two. Studies on what people wish they had done differently, especially later in life. Almost universally, people regret the things they didn't attempt far more than the things they tried and got wrong.
The silences, the never tried, those hurt more than the failures.
There's a palliative care nurse, Australian woman named Bronnie Ware. She wrote about the most common regrets of people who were dying. And the number one thing, I wish I had lived a life true to myself. Not the life others expected. Not, I wish I had failed less. But, I wish I had been braver.
I wish I had been braver.
Which reframes everything. Because suddenly the question isn't, what if I fail? It's, what if I never try? Which of those is actually the greater loss?
What if I never try? That's the real risk, isn't it?
Always was. And there's one more thing, and I think this might be the most practically useful. It's something psychologist Susan Jeffers wrote about. The idea that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting while the fear is still there.
Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Feel it fully. Don't pretend it isn't there. Don't wait for it to go away, because it won't. Not before you start. But move anyway. And here's what happens neurologically when you do that. The brain updates. It registers. I was afraid. I did it. I'm still here. And the fear response weakens slightly. Each time.
So courage is literally something you build by using it in small amounts.
Small doses. You don't start with the huge, terrifying thing. You start with the phone call you've been avoiding, the email sitting in your drafts, the small, true thing you've been afraid to say. Each one builds something, neural architecture for the bigger things.
But I keep thinking about that course, and I think the version of me that applied and got rejected would actually be stronger than the version that never tried.
Without question.
And the version that applied and got in
Would have had a different life by now.
Both outcomes were better than what I chose.
Which was nothing. Yeah. Most people never let themselves see that. They're so focused on the two visible options, succeed or fail, that they forget they've already chosen a third one. Stay still. Stay safe. Stay exactly where you are.
Stay small. That's what it really does, isn't it? Fear of failure just keeps you small.
It's probably the main way people end up living lives smaller than what they were capable of. Not from lack of talent, not from lack of opportunity, but from fear that learned to sound like wisdom.
If you have something, a dream, an application, a conversation you keep putting off, something you've been meaning to start, and fear has been quietly keeping you from it, I want you to hear this. The failure you're afraid of is survivable. The version of you that tried and got it wrong is still a braver version than the one that never moved.
And the only way to find out what's on the other side is to actually go there. Even imperfectly, even afraid, especially afraid.
That's where the real living is. In the attempt.
Always has been.
Thank you for being here with us today.
If this moves something in you, share it with someone who needs permission to try. They might be waiting for exactly this.
And our question before you go.
What is one thing fear of failure has kept you from attempting, that deep down you know you still want to try?
Tell us in the comments. Honestly, we read every single one.
Until next time.
Stay curious, stay kind, and remember, the attempt is always worth more than the silence.